Okay, I guess we can go ahead and get started since everybody's here. Miss McLean, I think will just walk in when she's done with her call.
Okay, so how long do we have? Like
an hour?
Okay. Ish. So I'm not going to talk for an hour straight, so we can take a breath and really. I really wanted this to be more of a conversation since this is y'all's first week and you're getting into it. So I'll start and tell you a little bit about me, just for context, and then I thought we could just have a conversation, some girl chat. So my name's Brit, and I'm from Louisville originally. I did move around a little bit growing up. I'm pretty much from here. I don't know if anybody is from Newburgh, but
Hey.
okay, all right. So I went to high school here. I went to college at Howard University, and I studied PR. And I thought that I was gonna work for Essence. That was my dream, to do PR for Essence magazine. So that's what I did in college. I graduated in, I have to think, 2009. And at that point, y'all are younger than me, but the economy wasn't great. So I was like, this is not the best time to be looking for a job, so I'm just gonna go straight to grad school. I'm already used to staying up and studying. I'm already in student mode, let me just keep going. So I went to the University of Memphis and again was getting my master's in journalism. And during that time, Twitter was actually, believe it or not, still kind of new. And so, I'm 30, y'all, so. So at that point, people hadn't started to think about social media in terms of branding or marketing. The way that people use, did y'all see the IHOP stuff with Wendy's and all that? People weren't using social media like that then. It was still kind of this is what I have for lunch. I'm gonna check in on Foursquare. I don't even know if y'all use Foursquare, but it was this check-in app. Facebook didn't have a check-in feature. Social media, Instagram wasn't even around. It was very 1.0. And so they started this new major called digital marketing, which is basically how to use social media, websites, search engine optimization, all this stuff to basically market something, to sell something. And obviously that has, parallels to entrepreneurship. So I started to think about technology in a new way, this is actually something you can use to build a business and a brand with, not just something just to chat and put a status update. So that was the first thing, that kind of aha moment for me. The second thing is, in college, in grad school, you have your major and your minor, but then you also are allowed to take electives. So courses that maybe aren't in your major, but just things that you're interested in. So you usually have at least a couple of those that you'll take in college. And so I decided to do an HTML, CSS class. And also something called ActionScript, which nobody uses anymore. It was for Flash, which made websites do all these really cheesy, corny things. If you saw them today, you'd be this website's from the 80s. So I started learning to code. And it was the first time, I was an okay student, I didn't really have to study that hard just to do well, but I wasn't necessarily in high school, trying to get a 4.0. I was just trying to basically get good enough grades that I didn't get in trouble with my mom. College was the first time that I really had teachers and professors who pushed me, and then that kind of raised the expectations that I had for myself. And so all that to say, I never really was the type of student in high school to take homework home and do extra homework. But in this class, I was taking my book home and I was researching and I was learning basically beyond what we're learning in class how to build websites. And so the summer between my first year and second year of grad school, I didn't have a job because I was a graduate assistant, which is kind of like a work study type of deal where they pay you to work, so pay your rent and all that. But that doesn't go on during the summer, so I had to find a way to literally keep my lights on. So I called a bunch of churches and hair salons and were you need help with your website. I know how to build websites. Let me do this for you. And I think I charged them $200 or $100 or whatever it was. And that's how I basically just paid my bills over the summer. So that was kind of my first experience with what y'all are doing, building websites for people. So I finished grad school and applied for a digital marketing, what ended up being a digital marketing position with Ronald McDonald House. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Ronald McDonald House. Y'all familiar with Ronald McDonald House charities at all? So basically a family that who has a child who has a medical emergency, if they have to travel to take their child to the hospital, Ronald McDonald House provides like a home-like space for them to stay versus a hotel. And so they're staying with other families who are in similar situations. They have home-cooked meals, volunteers, they have a similar bedroom as to what you would have at home. So it's meant to kind of facilitate the healing process by keeping the families together, and it's free most of the time. So the one in Memphis, they do that for St. Jude patients and families. So you can imagine like how, tugging on your heartstrings that work is. So I really enjoyed it. But they weren't doing a lot with like social media or technology, so that was my opportunity to be what I kind of call an entrepreneur. So some of you might decide you want to start your own company. Some of you might decide I'm entrepreneurial, but I want to take that and apply it to an organization or a company, and that's an opportunity as well. So I was able to do some innovative things with technology within an organization. So I had a 9-to-5, but I was able to be innovative and help with a lot of their like online fundraising and all that. So during that process, because I was the youngest person on the team, I also got assigned with vetting any other technology that we would use, because they just assumed I was a technology expert because I was 24, 23. And I realized there were these companies that were building technology that were for profit, so they were making money, but they were building technology to do something good in the world. And so that kind of, bless you, welcome to allergy season. So that type of company is called a social enterprise. So basically you have an enterprise, which basically means it's for profit, they have a profitable mission, but there's also some sort of social return. So that could be something for the environment, that could be something to tackle hunger or homelessness, whatever it is that founder is passionate about. And so I was like, okay, I could do that type of company because I've had this experience. I understand kind of the social sector, and I'm also interested in technology, and I'm also entrepreneurial. So I kind of put all of those things together. And later that year, my grandfather passed away, which I only share because he was very much kind of a macho guy, but he also had the ability to raise very strong girls, like very independent women. And he always encouraged me to go after my dreams, and which I think is really important for a young woman to have that type of support. And so when he passed away, I was like, all right, I gotta honor him and go after this dream. Like, it's time to do it. So I left my job and I started a company. I did have the benefit of getting a $15,000 investment, which gave me some, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. My mom was like, not floating my ambitions, my dreams, but that investment helped me to be able to do that. So my company was basically building software for mentoring programs. So if you think about basically a mentoring program like a Big Brothers Big Sisters, and kind of like an eHarmony for that. So these organizations were using literally notebooks and like spreadsheets and all these very outdated things to do things like matching and tracking the volunteers, which you can imagine takes a lot of time. And so I built a technology to save them time, and also what's called an algorithm, which is what eHarmony uses when they ask you like what you're interested in and what this person's interested in, and they pair you together based on that. So I built that same thing for mentoring relationships. So I'm off and running. I've been doing that now for 5 years. I went through an accelerator, which is basically like a boot camp for people with like technology ideas. The reason it's called an accelerator is because when you step on the gas in your car, you accelerate. So this is meant to get you to a year's worth of progress, but in 90 days. So it's meant to just get you further than if you were trying to do it on your own. I did that. I graduated from that. At the end of that year, I moved to San Francisco for 4 months for a program called NewMe, which was specifically for Black tech founders, meant to give them connections to investors or mentors in Silicon Valley, which is where like all of the tech stuff is, Google and Facebook and all that. But I'm not gonna lie to y'all, like, there was a lot of sacrifice and a lot of risk in that process. I moved out of my apartment, I sold my little Intrepid, it was on its last leg, but I still sold it, to do that, and to have money to like live while I was there. And when I moved back, I ended up getting so I've done about $250,000 in investment thus far. But if I hadn't have had that, I was coming back with nothing. Like, I didn't have a place to stay, I didn't have a car. It was just like this. I put everything of what I had. I mean, I was, I worked for maybe a little over a year before starting a company, so it's not like I had saved a lot before that. But that second investment allowed me to really kind of get the product or the platform launched, the technology launched. So I've had customers, and I did the state of New York's mentoring program on our platform, customers in St. Louis, Seattle, Tennessee, where I was in Memphis, kind of here, there, everywhere. And at a certain point, probably about 1.5 years ago, I realized what we built wasn't growing the way it needed to, and people weren't using it at the rate that I needed them to show value of what we built. So, when you're trying to put something into you take a product, even if it's like, I don't know, making shea butter or whatever it is, like whether it's an app for shea butter, like you need customers to use it in order to measure whether your product is good. And so for something like a physical product, like if I'm making mugs, I might measure, how many mugs are people buying from me? Are they telling other people about my mugs, and are those people coming to buy from me? And how much money am I making in my mug sales? So if I'm not getting any of those things at the rate that I've estimated, then I have to kind of adjust something about my business needs to be adjusted. And so what we realized is we were in a market that wasn't going to scale. There wasn't enough revenue available in the market we were in. And so I had to make a very risky decision and completely pivot to a whole other market, and then also pivot the entire platform. And we're actually on the tail end of that process now and getting ready to relaunch at the end of this month. So all that to say, it's I share that because I think a lot of times when we read about successful people, we hear like, oh, I started here and then I got here and here I am. But a lot of times it's, you go like this, and then it's like, oh, that's not working, and then it's figured out, and then so it's a very it's a roller coaster, if you will, and sometimes you go down and come back up. So, you kind of have to, in order to do this, you really do have to be flexible in that way. It takes a lot of faith, whether that's your job, I'm a spiritual person, but, whatever your source is of that, it takes a lot of that to do this, because you have to believe in what you're doing before it manifests, and you have to hold on to that. Even when everything in front of you is telling you this is not going to work, this is not working. So you kind of have to have what I call like irrational optimism or faith. Let's see, what else would I share? I guess the other thing I would share for me is there was a time when I felt very isolated in this process, because especially like my close girlfriends are not necessarily, they're entrepreneurial, but they're not entrepreneurs. They're working 9-to-5s or doing other things, great things, but a lot of times my life doesn't look like their life, and sometimes it looks like they're further ahead in certain areas than I am. And so I had to learn to trust my own journey and my own path and not compare it to other people's. And I think that's also something really important for people who are very creative, or people who have big visions, is there will be times when your life just does not look like everybody else's, and it'll feel like you're on a different path, literally, but it'll feel like you're behind, or like maybe I should be doing this over here. And I think especially with like social media and stuff, Instagram, sometimes I have to get off Instagram, because it looks like everybody else is like winning and successful, and like, oh, she's out of the country, she's over here, like, and I'm over here stressed out. And so it's just very easy to compare. Do y'all ever do that? Is that just me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So sometimes you just have to log off and have blinders and trust that if you feel something like in your heart, like this is the thing that I'm supposed to do, like I have to build this thing, I have to do this thing, then chances are you're the person who's supposed to do that. So you just have to kind of hold on to that in any way that you can, whether it's a vision board or, you know, having really supportive people around you is really important. I wouldn't be, I think, as whole as I am if I didn't have people around me who are supportive, people who want to see me succeed, people who are not judgmental, who I can be honest about and saying like, girl, I don't know what I'm doing, like I'm terrified right now, and there's no judgment, and you need those people who will tell you the truth when you need to hear it, but also lift you up when you need to be uplifted. So that's also really important, and I'll stop there for now, but yeah, so that's pretty much that journey.
Yeah, so, okay, so let's start like with opening up to questions, but I also want you guys to tell Brit what you've been working on the last week. So yeah, if anybody has like an immediate question, go for it, or just anything that they want to share.
What's the name of your company? It's called Helm. Helm.
How did you come up with the name?
So it was previously called Mentor Me, so if you like, and I'm not saying for y'all to Google me, but if you looked me up, like that's what would show up, would be Brit Fitzpatrick Mentor Me. I literally picked that name because I was doing this pitch contest and I needed a name, and I was like, oh, Mentor Me, like, but since that time, there's been probably 5 other Mentor Me's that have popped up in other like countries and other things, and it's not like a unique name, so I needed something that had a connotation of like guidance or kind of parallel to mentoring, but not so literal. And helm is like the directional part of a ship, so I just kind of thought of something that was more evocative instead of like essence is evocative of something. Like when you hear essence, it gives you a certain thought of what that brand is.
Okay, cool. Did you guys hear any similarities between what you've gone through and what Brit has done in her professional career?
Yes. When you talked about how you did like the digital thing, so I just realized that, okay, so when I go to UK, college, my major is writing, rhetoric, and digital studies. So I'll just like realize what the digital studies probably is.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it makes it even more interesting.
Yeah.
I'm like super excited for that because then like I'll be able to tie in like what we're doing here with that. So this is really exciting.
Yeah, so what's really exciting I think about the like technology startup space is people who are good writers are starting to be able to build profitable companies. Like, have y'all heard of Glavity at all? So Glavity, y'all should look it up. It's founded by a Black woman named Morgan Devine. She's from St. Louis. She started basically a blog, like, and she figured out how to build that. She's raised over $1 million in investment, and she's basically making money from writing online. So there's a lot of opportunity. It's not just, I'm going to build an app or software. Like, chances are, whatever you're interested in, there's a way to apply technology to that to make it into a profitable company. So, yes, you should definitely get to that.
I have a question. What was the most difficult part about your learning process?
Whew, how much time do we have? That is a really good question. You know, I think, I'm trying to think of just one.
Like one that stands out with the day that you think of it.
So I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. So I think and I'm being honest with y'all because I feel like people older than you don't do that enough and be transparent about this kind of stuff when they're talking from this like, oh, look at me, I'm a successful place. I think the greatest challenges, even in your career, whether regardless of what you decide to do, you'll find that there are certain habits that you have personally that will translate over into your professional career. And so when you first start, and because we're all imperfect, we all have something, you'll find that maybe when you first start, you'll learn things about yourself that maybe you didn't know because you're in a new environment and the things become more obvious to you. So to give you a specific example, for me, like I had to learn, so I'm a perfectionist by nature, and I had to learn how to move forward even if things weren't the way that even if things weren't perfect or what I envisioned to be perfect. And for me, I think it was really more so just fear of failing. So if this isn't perfect, then it's not gonna work. And in entrepreneurships, there are literal, like, the process is literally designed so you put things out that aren't perfect. It's more about putting things out quickly, so that you can get the feedback and then know exactly what you need to change. But if you're a perfectionist, you want to hold on to it until it's ready and then put it out, and that's not how it works in the technology space. So I've had to learn or train myself in how I confront fears, if that makes sense. So I've had to kind of mentally train myself and build up that muscle so that if I'm afraid of something, I know now from experience it means that there's something really great on the other side of it. And if I just push past it, it's super uncomfortable to do, but if I push past it, everything's fine. So that's not like a hard skill, but that's something probably been the biggest transformation for me from beginning to now.
So when you learned how to build the websites for coding, how long did that take you to really get to the point to where you knew you could really build the website for money?
Girl, desperation breeds all kinds of creativity. Because when that light bill was due in 30 days. So I had a basic understanding coming out of the class, but I wouldn't say from a design perspective, things are really all that sophisticated looking. It was more so just it works, it has all the sections and all that. So I literally learned while building them. So if someone was like, oh hey, can you do this? I was like, sure, I can build that, no problem, let me look up how to do that. So I really did learn as I went along, because I had to pay the bills and I had to make sure these people were happy with the website. So another thing with coding in particular is you're never done learning. Even now, I'm still learning things because things change so fast. Even when I started, text messaging wasn't really a big deal then necessarily. Now there's a lot of companies that are only text based. We didn't have Facebook Messenger, all these kind of messaging things. We had AOL, which I'm pretty sure was not around when y'all were. Okay, never mind. Do you remember? Okay, great. So messaging things weren't a really big deal. Mobile was still pretty new at that point. I think I got my first iPhone in grad school. So yeah, it just wasn't, mobile apps were still relatively new, all of it, so you're just always learning and changing. So I would approach it that way, and I think the people who are successful are the people who make the effort to remain curious and open to learning. It's not necessarily about oh, this person has all of the skills or what have you, because you can't gain experience until you do it. And so you just have to jump in and just do it. And the great thing for you all is there's so much information out there on the web now, of things you can learn. And I literally would get to a line of code and get stuck, and I would just Google what to do and just take it line by line. So that's how you learn, honestly.
It's so, yeah. You said you had to pivot from your target demographic or to a new demographic. I'm curious.
What that is?
Yeah.
Yes. So something interesting happened when I was mainly selling to nonprofits and what they call municipalities, so the city of New York or the city of Louisville, what have you, that had these large scale mentoring programs. And so I was looking for people that had to manage a lot of volunteers, because that meant that you needed technology more so than anybody, because you only had typically 1 to 2 people to manage all that. So if I literally said, hey, here's 100 mentors. I need you to match them by tomorrow. Thank you so much. Like, you'd be like, wait, what? So those are the people that I was looking for. So I'm selling to this market, and it's becoming a lot more cumbersome for me than I had anticipated. It's taking me out of being a technology company to being more of a consultant, which is not the company that I was trying to build. Like, I'm doing a lot of like, okay, this is what you need to do with your program, you need to fix this, and that's, you know, I'm becoming more of that than here's some technology, like, let me know if you need technical support, which is what I was, you know, doing. So while I was doing that, I started to get a lot of accelerators, chambers of commerce, small business kind of programs or entrepreneurship programs reaching out saying, hey, we have this exact same problem. Can your technology work for us? And so I, on my own, and this is where what y'all are doing is really great, so I had my developers working on that platform. Because I had some coding knowledge and technology knowledge, I was able to build kind of a solution over here for these people, just enough to get them to use it and just to see if this was a real market. Turns out it is. And so when this one started to go like this and this one was going like this, we said we need to be over here. So basically we're pivoting to just, I would call generally small business mentoring. That could be a startup, that could be a small business, but we're still selling directly. So we're still B2B, which stands for business to business, meaning that I'm not recruiting mentors myself. I am selling to accelerators who have mentors, and they're doing all that, but my customer is the accelerator. And what we're building is an app, so it is going to be mobile first, and I don't know if you all are familiar with chatbots at all. So, y'all don't even know like the Microsoft paperclip because y'all are too young for that too. But so basically a chatbot, y'all heard of like artificial intelligence, right? Okay, so artificial intelligence is like a broad term for basically teaching a computer to think, quote unquote, like a human, in a sense. I think there's like advanced like artificial intelligence, like robots and stuff like that, and then there's stuff where I am kind of down here, which are bots. And so basically if you text, let's say I text Southwest Airlines, like Southwest like 4544 or whatever, the automated responses that I'm getting, those are likely text bots. So it's mimicking what a real person who works at Southwest Airlines might say to me in that particular situation. So if I'm trying to book a flight and I'm getting text from Southwest, it's probably automated, it's probably a bot. So we're doing something similar where instead of basically asking a real person for advice, you can use our app, and our app is smart enough that it can actually mimic what the advice a mentor would give you to help you grow your business. So that's kind of the gist of it.
So like it uses like keywords and questions?
Yes, so to that point, so keywords, the keywords questions piece, that's something called natural language processing. So it's when you can put, like I can type a paragraph and the computer or whatever it is can kind of scan that paragraph for certain words and understand what I'm saying. There's also something called machine learning. Awesome. So we're using that as well. So basically if someone asks, we can track basically the types of questions that are being asked, like this question was about marketing versus this question was about sales. And we can also track the feedback on how good the responses we gave were to determine like whether or not the content we're giving is helpful, and kind of filter out the things that aren't helpful and start pushing out the things that are. Does that make sense? So.
Oh, it's kind of like on the website, how some websites have Q&As, like
Exactly.
but it's like more things.
Exactly. Yeah, similar to that.
So I have a question. So your, company is obviously primarily a technology company, but how much do you do with the actual tech?
Girl. Oh, the actual like building the tech? So I do everything up to the the actual build. So when I come up with an idea for technology, the first thing I do is I do a business model canvas to figure out like what the business model would be. And business model canvases are great because then a lot of people are like, oh, I need a business plan. No, you need a business model. Don't waste 20 pages of paper on a business plan until you know that you have a business model that's going to work. So that's the first thing I do. I look at the size of the market. How many potential customers are there? How much can I charge them? And how much realistically of that can I get? So if there's only 100 potential customers, then I probably need 100% of those in order for this to be a profitable company, versus if there's 500,000 potential customers, then I can get a small percentage of that and still have a decent business. So I do that. Then I do I'm a visual person, so I kind of map out how I want the app or whatever it is to work from a user's perspective. So this is what you do this with a website too, right? Like you want them to go to the home page, then you want them to click this button, then you want them to do this. So you kind of walk through what's called a user flow for that particular thing. So that helps me to kind of get it out of my head. And literally it's like boxes and arrows, like it's not fancy at all. But that also helps me when I'm talking to my developer, I can really explain how I want it to work. And I think that's important because I'm not a developer by trade, it kind of puts us on more even footing to make sure that he's building exactly what I need, and I can communicate it to him in a way that he's thinking about it as well. So I do that, and then I do either what's called a wireframe or a prototype. So a wireframe is literally, it could be as simple as a drawing of like, here's a phone, here's a screen, here's this button. Like you're just kind of drawing two-dimensionally, very simplistically, what you want the different screens to look like, or for a website, what you want the different pages to look like. Like we want a box of text over here, we want a picture right here, whatever it is. For the prototype, it's a little more functional, and I've used, there are actually prototype tools out there now that weren't there when I started in 2013, so I used something called Bot Society, where I was basically able to just type in text, and it mimicked how the chatbot would actually work, so I could actually send that to my developer, and he could see, real time, okay, this is how this will work, and it took me, a day to do it, if that, so it was really easy to do. So that's kind of so everything up to there. And then I have a conversation with the developer. We do what's basically called a product roadmap. So you break down your idea into features. So let's say you have an app that is you're selling something on it. So let's say you want customers to be able to go on, you want them to be able to create an account, you want them to be able to purchase a product, you want them to be able to check out. So you would break each of those things down into separate features and put that in a roadmap in terms of when each of those things will be built out. So it's kind of like a timeline or a project plan. And then that's what you kind of use to manage make sure you're on task and make sure that things are getting built when they're supposed to be built. So in short, and then that's kind of an ongoing process.
So, when, in your experience, when you, before you started the business and before you really, set off, how do you think, how hard do you think it would be for us, or, what would be that next step for us going from here? We're learning, we learned how to do the basics of, coding, and I'm pretty sure, we're gonna get pretty far by the end of this, and we'll be able to build websites, but then, do you have any idea, what our next step would be? Because we're still learning, so, really learning, what that next step would be for us, maybe getting a job.
Yeah, so I would find mentors who are in and I'm gonna say that because I do mentoring stuff, I really do, who are in the space that you want to be in. I'll tell you the thing that I've learned about business, whether you're going into a career or going into business for yourself, relationships are everything. And I don't think that we tell our young people that enough, especially when they're headed off to college. Like, make relationships, professors, alums, people in your church, whoever, like, build relationships with people. And you all are at the age where people want to help you, and are so impressed and flattered that you're reaching out for their help that people will help you. So I would find mentors, and those are the people that you can get internships from. But I would really focus on just getting as much experience as possible. So if you're wanting to go into something technical or to do something technical, the more you have built, the better off you'll be. And you're at the perfect time to start building and learning. And so I would find mentors. I would keep practicing. I would build as many things as you can think of between now and throughout college. When you're in college, I would find, if you go to like meetups.com and look to see if there are any like developer or technology meetups, hackathons, startup weekends, all of that stuff. Like, get plugged in, get into that tech community, build relationships. Like, I see honestly everything. Like, she's out here just networking, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, like, she's out here just building relationships, and that you really do have to do that. And if nobody tells you that, you don't, like, nobody told me that. I learned that later on. But I'm telling you that so you know. That is really that's how you get opportunities. Like, you can have two people that are equally qualified, have the same skill sets, same education, same exact background. 9.5 times out of 10, the person that has the best relationships is going to be the person that gets the opportunity. So
sometimes less qualified.
Yeah, exactly. I know, I'm not trying to jade the kids or anything. I'm trying to keep hopeful in here. But yes, relationships really do matter. So that's what I would focus on, relationships, and then just building as many things as you can. Like, and also just be on the lookout, like, what are the problems that you're experiencing in everyday life? Like, what are the things that it could be something as simple as, like, my mom's so funny, so she's always coming up with ideas for products now. So she invented these little hooks to put on the side of the trash can so the garbage bag won't fall into the trash can. But like little things like that, just looking for opportunities to solve like everyday problems. Because entrepreneurship is all about solving problems. Like the way that your shirt buttons, like the way that you have to button, somebody came up with that. You know what I mean? So it could be something like that. It could be something in your community. Anjali saw an opportunity to connect girls with, that's a problem that she saw, and she created a business out of that. So just looking for opportunities to do that, and the people who are mentoring you will be the people who will help you bring those things to life and will keep you encouraged. And the last thing I would say, because I can't stress this enough, I think especially as a girl, a young woman, a woman in this space, a black woman in this space, a woman of color in this space, really important to have positive people around you. So that's your friends, that's your mentors, whatever it is. Like, surround yourself with positive people who want to see you succeed, people who you can be vulnerable with and go to for advice and feel safe doing so, and people who will push you, who see your potential and won't allow you to settle for less than that.
Can you speak to the opportunities that exist or that are available or that you've encountered for women of color in particular?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I am so here for the Black Girl Magic right now. So women of color are just like quietly taking over the world, and I'm here for all of it in technology. So just for perspective, when I started, I think there had been like 11 black women who had raised $1 million or more in venture capital, which is like the LeBron James of investment. Like, that's the kind that you want to build your company. And now there's, I think, like 27 or 28, and most of those have been within the last like 2 years. So one of my good friends just sold her company to Amazon. Like, who does that? Like, you're amazing. So, all that to say, there's a trend of successful Black women in tech. So basically what that means is people are coming at like the perfect time right now, because you're like coming in with the wave, which is amazing. So we need you, we literally need you all, because we need to keep this thing going and we need your brilliance in the space. So a few things. So I actually want to bring a Black Girls Code chapter here to Louisville. I'm like harassing the founder of Black Girls Code to make that happen in progress. But there is Black Girls Code. They're national. I think they do some stuff in Nashville as well. They may have something in Cincy, but they're a national network of programmers. And really,
I'm really serious about
oh
Girls
my
Code.
gosh. Okay, well we'll work on that. Put a pin in that.
Right.
There's a company called Backstage Capital that was founded by a woman named Arlen Hamilton. She raised the fund while she was homeless, which is crazy. But she is actually launching a multi-million-dollar investment fund specifically for Black women tech founders. I think it's like $36 million, if I'm not mistaken. But look up Backstage Capital. And I mean, there's just so much, and there's so many. What I do to keep myself inspired, what I would encourage y'all to do, is just look at the companies that women who look like you are building, so you can see what's possible. Because a lot of times, the narrative, we are like underrepresented within the space, but that doesn't mean we're not there. And a lot of times the story is about kind of the challenges and the obstacles, and all those things are true, but I don't think that we do a good enough job of showing our young people, like, yes, that's true, but despite all of that, here's what you can do. And you can be the first one to do X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to give y'all some names of people to look up for that reason. So one of them is Jewel, Jewel. Burks, Burks. Morgan Devine, Morgan Debeaun. Who else do I want to give you? Gooder, so Goodr. So Gooder without the E, Goodr. That's Jasmine, I think it's Jasmine Crow, but you go Gooder, you'll find Jasmine. Let's see. Dawn Dixon, so DAWNDICKSON. I want you all to look up, I mean, go Backstage Capital. What else I want you all to look up? I want you all to look up Digital Undivided. One word, but maybe if you put it 2 words, it'll come up. Mixtroz, so MIXTROZ. And then I'll give y'all Candace Mitchell, so CANDACE, and then Mitchell, MITCHELL. And then if y'all need any more, I can send y'all more. That's a good start. But yeah, there's tons of stuff out there. There's a newsletter that you all should follow called The Plug Daily. I think it's literally like theplugdaily.com. You all should subscribe to that, because that is all of the kind of, it's news all about people of color and what we're doing in technology. And I love Sherelle is the person who founded it, and her mission was, what I was saying earlier, is we're always talking about, less than 1% raise this money, or it's so hard to do this, and we're not talking about what people are doing in spite of that, and how people are succeeding in spite of that, and that's what her whole newsletter is about. So that's where you get plugged in. People of Color in Tech is another good blog to follow. Yeah, it's also there. So yes, just learn as much as you can, build relationships, and find those role models you can kind of mirror yourself after, so that even when it seems hard, even when it seems impossible, you have an example that, you know, she's doing it, I can do it too. And you can.
I have another question. Do you have any tips for us if we want to take what we learned here into a different field? Like we don't want to
Yeah.
go directly into technology and marketing?
Yep. Yeah, so I think that's the cool thing about now is technology is a tool now, it's not just an industry, so everything has a technology component. My mom works in insurance, and I say that because I'm not a spreadsheet person, but she does a lot of stuff. But even she has technology components to what she does, and that insurance is like a very old industry, heavy regulated industry, and so do you know what you would be interested in?
Yeah, I want to go into pharmacy and pharmaceutical research, and I was wondering if there's any way that I could kind of incorporate that.
Yeah, for sure. We can talk more specifically about that, but the short answer is yes. And there's also a lot of innovation happening in that space as well. So yeah, for sure.
Can you talk a little bit about like what you've seen in Louisville since being here the last year?
Yeah. So I've been gone for 9 years, and so when I came back, I had no friends. I did not know what was happening here. I was at my granny's house kicking it. I live here now, but it's different when you go to high school somewhere. Your friends all go away to college, all move different places, and most of my friends I made as an adult I made in college or in Memphis when I was living there. So I didn't know about any of the things that were happening here around startups, and I actually remember Googling to see what was going on here and not really finding very much. And so it wasn't until probably October, September of last year, that I found out about an entrepreneur center here called 1804. And that's where aside from my startup, I'm working as a contract worker or a part-time person there now, as doing what's called business development and marketing, which is just a fancy way of saying kind of building partnerships with similar organizations, making sure that people are aware of 1804 is the nuts and bolts of that. So I found out about 1804. We're at East Market in Shelby. It's called Nulu, which also did not exist when I was in high school here. It was just like Hancock and then downtown. But we basically work with entrepreneurs who have ideas for, we say tech-enabled companies, because to your question, not everything is an app or software. You could be a website that I'm using to sell my clothing, and that is technically e-commerce, so that's tech-enabled. Or I could have somebody who has an ice cream shop, and maybe they also sell their, ice cream would be the thing, sell mine, but y'all know what I'm saying. So we work with entrepreneurs that have tech-centered ideas or have a tech component to their ideas, and we help them with everything from getting their idea and testing it out to, if they have something that they've already built, how do they actually grow it. In some cases we might connect them to investors. In some cases I might help them with their, have you heard of Shark Tank? We should have a Shark Tank party, that would be fun. So in some cases I'll help them develop their Shark Tank pitch, for an investor. So it's really just kind of making sure that people have the support that they need so that we have more of those types of companies here in Louisville. Personally, and when I came in, I've shared the work that I did in Memphis. I'm really passionate about seeing more women, more people of color, more women of color, more underrepresented people in this space. So that's also something that we're doing at 1804, is figuring out how do we, and Anjali and I've been doing some of that work that she started together, so figuring out how do we let more people know that this is a space for them, because what I find is a lot of people will say, oh, I have this entrepreneurial idea, but I'm not an entrepreneur. But didn't you just say you had an entrepreneurial idea? So just getting more people to understand, hey, this space is for you, come on in, we want you here as well. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts. There's Access Ventures here that invests in companies. They're probably the most active here at this point by far. And then you have organizations like Enterprise Corps. They do an accelerator called the Vote Awards, where they give you some coin for your company and help you kind of go through a similar accelerator that I went through. There's all kinds of things popping up. The Wild accelerators here now, that's all
Stacey's
women.
coming in on Monday.
Oh, she is? Okay, so I'll hold that. I'll pull off on my Stacey Brave. I love her. So we have Wild here now. Yeah, there's just all kinds of stuff happening. There's all kinds of meetups. Like, if y'all ever want to go anything, just let me know, and like I will literally come. People do a field trip because there's just all kinds of things that are happening here, and it's such a great opportunity as a young person to go because you'll stand out, and people will be like, oh, I wonder what that person's doing here. Let me go talk to them, and it's just your opportunity to build as many relationships as possible. And the more people see your face when they see that you are eager to learn and to make the effort, you'll be surprised at how much people want to help you. So I would just like stay plugged in and build as many relationships as possible.
Okay, any last questions? We're almost at an hour.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Okay, this is probably sounds stupid.
No.
There's no stupid questions.
Okay, so I understand like the concept of coding and everything, but how where do you actually do it? Like what space on a computer?
Right. That's not a dumb question at all.
No.
That is a very logical question, like where should I be doing this thing that you're talking about? So it kind of depends on the platform. So the simple question, so I'll answer that simply and then I'll break it out into something else. Okay, so simply, for me, I use basically what's called a text editor. So I use something called Coda, C-O-D-A, which basically allows me to code from scratch. So I create the actual HTML file, I create the actual CSS file, and I'm organizing it in a way that they talk to each other. So if I can use a makeup analogy, so HTML is kind of just like your foundation, and then CSS is like your contour. So that's what gives it the style. It's like the highlighter, like the little tips on your, it's just like the little zhuzh on the code. It gives it the style, it's the swag of the website. So if I'm building something just completely from scratch, I'll just do it in Coda because it stores all of that for me and I can organize it the way that I need to. I'll save the actual files on my computer. And there's a way that you organize the folders in the files on your computer so that everything's talking to each other the way that it needs to. So you'll have your photos in one folder, your HTML in one folder, and your CSS in another folder, and so that they all kind of talk to each other the way they're supposed to.
So
We'll
starting
learn this next week.
next week.
Yes. Yeah. So to be continued. So that's the first answer to that. Within coding, there are typically two types of developers. There is a back-end developer and a front-end developer.
Yeah.
So I am not a back-end developer. So that's the people who do all the what's called data modeling and the database stuff. So they organize, so everything with your Facebook profile, for example, if you think about where are people storing all the photos where's Facebook storing all your photos and your contact information and your posts and the text and the video, that all has to be stored somewhere, and it has to be, for Facebook, it has to be able to store a lot. So there are back-end developers who make sure that all of that gets structured appropriately so that when you want to do something like upload a photo or what have you, it gets saved in the right place.
We can't see it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's all backdated. Then you have the person who comes in and says, I'm going to do the design of the profile. So now that we know we have all this stuff saved and it's safe and it's not going anywhere, I'm going to come on the front end and make it look pretty, basically. So the way that, Facebook's changing stuff all the time. So that's the front end developer that's saying, oh, when we click this button, we want it to go from light blue to dark blue, or we want to move this from here to over here. So there are front-end developers who understand how you're they're studying kind of how you're using the website to be able to make decisions as to like what things they should change in terms of design.
That's one.
Mhm.
Just one. Okay, so how do you go from code to like actually publishing your website?
Yeah, so there are different hosting platforms that you can use. So you can use, I mean, if you buy a domain on like GoDaddy or Namecheap or Bluehost or what have you, you need a domain and you need a hosting plan. So the domain is what you point it to, so like whatever.com or what have you. Then the hosting is where you would actually put the files, and the files will point to the domain. So you just need to pick a hosting provider like a GoDaddy. I use GoDaddy because like developers kind of like roll their eyes when I say that because it's not like the cool hosting provider, but it works for me. So and they always have a sale, and I love a good sale. So yeah, you just need a domain and a hosting plan, and then you just publish your files, put your files onto the hosting platform.
So when we start working with those small businesses and when you guys pair up with them to make websites for the small businesses, they will buy the domain, so it'll be like in the name of their company, and then you'll create the website, you'll write the code for it, but then it'll be hosted, like they'll
Right.
pay for the hosting.
Yeah.
So like that's not on.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it yourself, and then you can also, if you want to do something in WordPress, that's even easier because that's all like, well,
Yeah, yeah.
Angela.
Well, yeah.
We'll be learning that.
Yeah.
Actually, no, right after this.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
So.
Next week.
Yeah, no problem. Those were great questions.
These are all like questions that show that you really want to
Yeah.
get your stuff into our world.
Yeah.
That's really good. Moving away from the tutorials. Yeah, any last questions? Anything you just want to share?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's the thing called when you learn how to like literally code, like the things like changing, like you click on something and changing to something else, moving on a page,
Like JavaScript?
right? I'm not sure, like right now what we're learning, like nothing moves on a page. Like you can click on something and it goes to another page,
Mhm.
or it goes back to the top of the page,
Mhm.
things like that. But
You want it to like, well, can you give an example of how you would want things?
like you were talking about on Facebook, how
Mhm.
like when they click something, it like moves to that big part of it.
There is,
Like how could we be able to?
there is,
Well, that's coming. That's coming.
yeah, it's coming up like in probably the next
Isn't it
videos
like-
because I've,
Yeah, so there's, yes.
Okay.
So I do that with like
Very nice,
JavaScript
good job.
and stuff, but yeah, that is a thing.
That's
that
another
you can do.
one.
That's awesome.
Yes. Good.
And that's a great language to learn too. If you want to be like a front-end developer, that's the thing to learn.
Definitely.
Yes.
JavaScript.
JavaScript.
Yes.
Good, yeah. You guys will, there will be many more exciting things that come next few weeks.
I'm excited to see what's on the website.
I'm excited because like I definitely plan on like having a lot of little things on the side.
Mhm.
Whatever my main thing is that I do, I definitely plan on like having a small thing here. Like I wanna be like a ghostwriter.
Mhm.
Like like for like speeches or
Mhm.
all kinds of things like that. Like if somebody has like a speech they need to prepare for
Yeah.
like an event and they don't like they
Yeah.
either feel like they're not creative or they feel like they don't have time.
Yeah.
Like I would write that for them
Mhm.
or like songs and things like that. And I want to like make that a job. So like I would make a website.
So you need to look up content writing and or content marketing.
What do you actually do?
Well, I actually helped my friend write her valedictorian speech because she felt like she was just really nervous and she felt like what she had really good. So I helped her write it. So I was like, I really feel like I can do this.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
you can.
And
You are.
content writing.
Or content marketing. So content writing is a part of content marketing, but
I feel like that's like potentially something I could make the website for. And then also me and my sisters kind of want to, like, later on, like after we get some things figured out, we want to like start a planning business together.
Mhm.
So I want to be like the person who does like the websites and the social media and and things like that. And then like they would like do other things.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of. I just have a lot
Your
of
own
ideas. Right. I just have a lot of ideas to start like small little things to do. Like, for a little bit.
Yeah. This is the time to do it.
Super excited for this now. I mean, I already was, but like, it just keeps giving. I just keep getting more ideas every day.
Good.
That's awesome.
Brit's
Right.
ideas.
Okay.
Anything else?
Y'all were quiet very well. Processing.
listening.
Oh, got you. Oh, got you.
I love that you you guys brought your notebooks. I realized you don't have notebooks yet. That's awesome.
Well, Angeli has my email, like all my contact
Yes.
information. So
Yes.
if y'all want to keep in touch, like you can pass along my
Yeah.
cell or whatever. So
I'm sure throughout the summer we'll have a lot of things to ask you
Yeah.
about you about. Okay. Let's go. Thank you so much.
yeah, of course.
This was actually a great way to kick off
Yes.
our evening. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna stop the camera. I feel it's time.
I did too.